Jonathan Levine's made some good movies, but also some not so good ones. But probably his best one, 50-50, was also with Seth Rogen, who stars in this one too. So they've proven that they can work well together, and I really like Seth Rogen. I've enjoyed a ton of his movies, but his career hasn't exactly been all that interesting or varied. However, his co-star here, Charlize Theron, has had a very interesting career. I mean, she's done it all, from action to drama to comedy, fantasy adventure movies and voice acting. From massive blockbusters to tiny indie movies, great movies to terrible ones. She's done it all, and I've liked her since, I think The Italian Job was the first one I really noticed her in. And if she does a movie, I usually watch it, but I do like her best in smaller indie productions. That being said, she's done some great big movies too, and she also does have some serious comedic chops too. So I was pretty pumped about this one, to be completely honest. It just looked like a whole lot of fun, and well, it was fun, but I'm not sure I'd call it a whole lot of fun. It's funny but not hilarious. And the romance and the drama works, but it's not super compelling. However, I would definitely call this one an above-average romantic comedy. If Always Be My Maybe was painfully average and Yesterday is well above average, this one sits somewhere in the middle. It's pretty good, but it's not great. And the general story here is about a journalist who's a bit down on his luck, played by Seth Rogen. And then we have the Secretary of State, played by Theron, who just so happens to be needing a new speechwriter. So they run into each other, and as it turns out, they hit it off really well. But here's the thing, I was kinda surprised by how few notes I took when watching this. I found it to be perfectly enjoyable, and I liked it, but nothing really popped, you know? Nothing made enough of an impression that I felt like I had to mention it. Except for Andy Serkis, who I didn't even know was in the movie. And he has a smaller role, and at first I didn't even recognize him. He looked kinda familiar, but he didn't really look like anyone I knew. And then at some point I was like, wait a minute, is that Andy Serkis? So I looked it up and yeah, that's Andy Serkis in very heavy makeup. And this is exactly why I've come to love Andy Serkis over the years. He's so incredibly versatile. He's mostly known for his motion capture performances, but in recent years he's proven that he can do regular acting too. And at the end of the day, it's all just acting. So yeah, he kinda stole the spotlight whenever he was on screen. He's such a physical actor too that you can't really help but to pay attention to him when he's on screen. But as I said, beyond that, nothing really stood out to me as especially noteworthy. I think the comedy works, I think the story works, the romance was believable. Mainly because Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron are great actors and they work very well together. It's also a very good looking movie with this sort of modern, sleek and clean aesthetic. But it also has a few pitfalls, like the comedy. They overdo it sometimes. Actually not that often, but a few times it's just way over the top. And I would also say that as a whole, the movie is a bit cheesy at times too. And it's not really doing anything new either. I mean, technically I haven't seen this story before, with these exact characters in these exact situations, so it didn't feel derivative or anything like that. It did feel like a new take on an old story, but at the same time, at the end of the day, it did feel like an old story. That archetypal blueprint did shine through. But I mean, it still did its job and it did it fairly well too. I liked it. It's good, it's fun enough, I enjoyed it, but it didn't leave much of a lasting impression. And I've also seen all the people involved make more unique and interesting movies. And I guess that's actually the crux here. It's not very interesting. There's nothing surprising about it, it does pretty much exactly what you'd expect it to do. In a way you'd expect it to, without really coming up with anything new or exciting. But would I recommend it? Sure, why not? It's kind of fun and entertaining. So maybe give it a look, maybe don't. After all, I'm not your dad. But I am trying to sell out, so consider liking, subbing, hitting that bell and supporting me on Patreon. Because I really need to get myself a private jet. And hey, why not drop a comment below or check out another review? I'd appreciate it. Thanks.